cost of achieving a post-secondary education.
We'll break now for statements by members, déclaration des députés, and the honourable member for Lethbridge will have a total of 3 minutes to finish her debate after question period. Déclaration des députés,
Statements by members.
Statements by members. The honourable member for Hastings, Lennox, and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to pay tribute to the Warden of Lennox and Addington County, Clarence Kennedy, who passed away in office in March. Integrity was his hallmark, and Clarence was a model of service to his community. He wore many hats, as many talented people like him so often do. He was a farmer in a strong farming community. He was a teacher with Lennox and Addington and Limestone School Boards for 33 years. He was also a long-serving councillor and then Reeve of Stone Mills Township, and we're also fortunate to see him made Warden of Lennox and Addington County for 2016, although his time in that office was far too short. Canada's rural communities need more farmers, teachers, and public servants like Clarence, and as a new MP, I greatly benefited from having experienced people like him to work with in service to our constituents. Mr. Speaker, I ask this House to please join me in thanking Clarence Kennedy for his service. May he rest in peace.
The honourable member for Souris, Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, this Sunday, April 17th, I will have the privilege of dropping the puck at the 2016 HoC Cup Midget Age Female AAA Hockey National Championships in Weyburn, Saskatchewan, which runs from April 17th to the 23rd at Crescent Point Place. 150 players from all across Canada will be in Weyburn, competing to win the title of national champions. I would like to specifically recognize the home team and my constituents, the Weyburn Gold Wings, and I wish them the best of luck. I would also like to encourage all members in this House and all Canadians to come to Weyburn, Saskatchewan, also known as the Opportunity City, and take in a game while cheering on those outstanding athletes. The chance to see some of our best female hockey players and maybe a future Olympian or two is nation building. Thank you to all the employees and volunteers who are working tirelessly to organize this event and to all the teams competing. I extend my best wishes and good luck on winning the 2016 HoC Cup. Go Goldwing, go!
L'honorable député de
The honourable member for Malcorel-Fortin. Mr. Speaker, in my riding of Malcorel-Fortin, the corporation Rosard, which was founded in 1991, brings together each year on St. Rose Boulevard over 90 artists, painters, and sculptors from Quebec and elsewhere. On the occasion of this event, over 20,000 visitors transit along this historic avenue in my riding. Mr. Speaker, last week, I had the honor of being the guest of honor at an event to benefit the next generation of artists in Laval. I'd like to rise today in this House of this chamber of our democracy to underscore the contribution to our society of our young artists from Laval and across the country.
Generation of new artists and their predecessors, and take pride in the fact that artists from all walks of life are encouraged to follow their passion. À la relève artistique.
To the next generation of artists, especially the ones who are on the Boulevard St. Rose in the summertime, I say thank you and bravo.
Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Hamiltonians were front and center in the fight to save home mail delivery. They know just how important this service is for seniors and those with mobility issues, as well as the other important services Canada Post provides across our country. In the middle of the last election, while visiting the Mayor of Montreal, the Prime Minister said that his party would restore home mail delivery. Those comments are very clear and can be seen on video. But now, in a classic bait and switch, the Prime Minister says that he is not going to be restoring home mail delivery because his platform only commits him to a moratorium on the previous government's plan to end door-to-door mail delivery. Mr. Speaker, this is just another example of Liberals campaigning on one thing and doing exactly the opposite when they're in power. After a winter of frozen community mailboxes, stolen letters, and mail littering the streets, Canadians expect the Prime Minister to honour his word and commit to fully reinstating home mail delivery. Because as anyone...
Honourable Member for Brossard-Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, on the occasion of National Volunteer Week, I would like to underscore the exceptional and essential work done by millions of volunteers who make our communities work. This reality was highlighted eloquently in these past months when over 25,000 Syrian refugees were welcomed across Canada. Without these dedicated and tireless volunteers, this wonderful humanitarian operation would have been impossible. In Brossard-Saint-Lambert, I would like to emphasize the dynamism and enthusiasm shown by volunteers who helped out the International House on the South Shore and the Christian communities of Saint-Lambert, which help dozens of Syrian refugees integrate into our society in our riding.
Did and do. I offer them all my lasting admiration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in remembrance of a constituent of mine, Gary Lefebvre, who passed away March 16, 2006. Gary was well known and well respected all across our country and especially in Alberta. He was a man of strong Christian faith. Gary was an athlete and played 8 seasons in the Canadian Football League for the Edmonton Eskimos and the Montreal Alouettes. He earned 2 Grey Cup rings and achieved top rookie in the Western Conference and top Canadian player in one of his Grey Cup games. He went on to become one of the founders of Athletes in Action Canada. He helped build Canada's first Circle Square Ranch, a summer camp in Halkirk, Alberta, where still hundreds of youth attend each and every summer. I've had the pleasure of hearing Gary Lefebvre speak on a number of occasions, and whether speaking on football in the CFL or on his relationship with Jesus Christ, he spoke passionately. Our prayers are with his loving wife, Sandy, his children, Sherry, Brad, and his grandchildren. Mr. Speaker, Gary will be sadly missed.
The honourable member for Beaches East York.
Mr. Speaker, I grew up in my riding of Beaches East York. As a kid, I attended the annual Easter Parade along Queen Street East, hosted by the Toronto Beaches Lions Club. It involves marching bands, floats sponsored by local associations and businesses, and it's attended by thousands of residents every year, including an estimated 40,000 people this year alone. As a tradition for many families in my community, it's particularly special for me to now march in the parade as the Member of Parliament. This being Volunteer Week, I want to thank the Beaches Lions and all of the dedicated volunteers for making this parade a success year after year, and I ask my colleagues to join me in marking this year the Beaches Lions Easter Parade's 50th anniversary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Eglinton Lawrence.
Canadian teams have been shut out. I rise today to provide a little bit of good news on the hockey file. I know it is shame. I rise today to acknowledge the Lawrence Park Panthers in my riding, the girls hockey team who recently won the gold medal for all of Ontario. C'est la toute première fois qu'une équipe.
This is the first time that a Lawrence Park Collegiate Institute hockey team has won a medal of any kind at the Ontario Federation of Student Athletic Associations tournament, and is a monumental achievement for this high school, for girls hockey, and for the riding of Eglinton Lawrence.
Parents and all constituents in our riding in giving a heartfelt hooray to Coach Karen Degla and the grade 11 and 12 players for this huge win. As a father of 2 girls, I thank you for your perseverance and in being such an amazing role model. As the Prime Minister said on his recent visit to the United States, there is no doubt who plays the best hockey, Mr. Speaker, and that's Canada.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan's Milkameen Nicola.
When I mention Burrowing Owl, many think of one of British Columbia's premier wineries. We should not forget that they took the name burrowing owl to raise awareness that this rare species of owl was actually declared extinct in British Columbia back in 1980. But the winery, working with the Burrowing Owl Conservation Society and other community volunteers, is working hard to change that, Mr. Speaker. Last week, the Upper Nicola First Nation hosted an event where 6 burrowing owls were released onto the reserve that also features artificially created burrows in the nearby habitat. This event was the first time in history that burrowing owls have been reintroduced onto First Nations land in British Columbia. This event did not happen overnight and in fact required roughly 2 years of preparation. I hope the House will join me in congratulating the Upper Nicola First Nation, the Burrowing Owl Conservation Society, the many volunteers, and our Federal Species at Risk Interdepartmental Fund for making this great day possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas.
Mr. Speaker, in 2014, U.S. Steel Canada entered creditor protection under the CCAA, pitching thousands of retired steelworkers into a spiral of uncertainty about their pensions and benefits. For example, Marilyn, the wife of a proud retired steelworker, worries each time she has a prescription filled. She and her husband are out thousands of dollars each month. She lives in constant pain, and the stress she feels each day is making things worse. On December 11, 2015, CHCH News terminated 167 workers. On that fateful day, Hamiltonians lost 62 and a half hours per week of vital local news. The silent CHCH voices are sorely missed by the viewing public and by Hamiltonians whose causes found a voice through their work. We must work to protect the pensions and benefits of U.S. Steel Canada retirees, and we must probe the insensitive and possibly union-busting dismissal of CHCH workers.
Honourable Member for Saint Boniface Saint Vital. Today, I urge all my colleagues in the House of Commons to recognize and thank Senator Maria Chaput, who, after 13 years of service, retired from the Senate on March 1st. Maria was the first Franco-Manitoban to sit in the Senate, where she defended with passion and conviction the rights of Francophone official language minority communities. Her inestimable and invaluable contribution to the Canadian Francophonie, particularly to the Franco-Manitoban, meant that she was awarded many prizes, such as the Order of Francophones of America.
A strong advocate for the respect of Canada's 2 official languages and an avid promoter of the many benefits of our country's linguistic duality. Maria, nous sommes très reconnaissants.
Maria, we are so grateful for the important role that you played and that you will continue to play. Thank you, dear friend.
The honourable member for Richmond Centre.
Mr. Speaker, located in my riding on Richmond Centre is the Vancouver International Airport, most commonly known as VIVR. The year 2015 was a milestone year for the airport, having served over 20 million passengers in a single year, with plans to increase service to 25 million passengers per year over the next 5 years. Indeed, there was another milestone at VIVR last year, and that was the opening of the MacArthur Glen Designer Outlet, the first of its kind in North America. This will attract even more tourists and local consumers to Richmond. It is my privilege to serve a riding that hosts a global leader in excellent transportation service and continues to be a vital link for travelers within Canada and beyond.
Member for New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, it is an honour to rise in the House today and recognize the many volunteers across our country who give so generously of their time to make our families, our communities, and our country strong. Just last week, 3 young Syrian families were warmly welcomed to the town of St. Stephen in my riding of New Brunswick Southwest. I was there when they arrived, and it is overwhelming to see how the volunteers have worked so tirelessly, preparing every detail to make their transition into the community a smooth one. I want to give special mention to the individuals and community groups who have welcomed over 25,000 Syrians. I want to thank these volunteers who constantly remind us of what it means to be Canadian. The leadership of our Prime Minister is inspiring volunteers in our country and around the world to be open, generous, and welcoming. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, the forestry industry is at a crossroads. in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, many workers live off of this industry. So what we need to do is protect our forestry jobs and make sure that they are sustainable. The softwood lumber agreement has expired, so the government must defend our industry despite the strong pressure being exerted by the U.S. The 18% surtax on calendared paper directly threatens our jobs in Kenogami and in Dolbeau, but the government is dragging its feet on this file. I urge the government to consider the major contribution made by forestry to our region and act to protect forestry workers as well as their role in our economy. Thank you.
The honourable member for Oxford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I rise today to pay tribute to Patrick Sabisky, who recently died, ironically, on March the 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Pat was a former Member of Parliament from 1988 to 1993. After the 1993 election, Pat returned to private business until 2001, when he returned to his birthplace of Woodstock, Ontario, to be with his elderly mother. Pat was then elected to Woodstock City Council in 2003, serving 2 terms as councillor and 1 term as mayor of the city in 2010. He was dedicated to his community and always did his very best when serving the citizens of Woodstock. Pat died at the age of 64. Far too young, Mr. Speaker. My condolences to his family and his friends.
Honourable member for Orleans.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, first, I would like to thank the citizens of Orleans for the trust they placed in me on Election Day, October 19th. I promise to serve them tirelessly in the House of Commons and in my riding.
50 Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat anniversary celebrations here in Ottawa. This community, whose motto is love for all, hatred for none, values peace, social justice, and harmony above all else. Present to convey this message were the National President, Mr. Lal Khan Malik, and the local Imam, Mr. Imtiaz Ahmed. Good friends. I was also pleased to see so many distinguished community members standing with the Canadian Ahmadiyya community, including my colleagues, the Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, the member for Hull Aylmer, the Right Honourable Prime Minister, and the Minister of Global Affairs. For me, what stands out the most about the Ottawa Ahmadiyya community is their inspirational community activism, outreach, and anti-radicalization efforts.
For 50 years, they have created their home in this remarkable nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions, questions orales. Honorable député de Lac-Saint-Jean.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean.
Mr.
Speaker, for the last few days, the Prime Minister is vaunting his great principles, but in fact, he criticizes the former government, but I have to say that when it comes to transparency, the parliamentary budget officer has said that he couldn't get the complete information he need because the government didn't give him the information. So how can the government say that it's transparent? The Honourable Minister. Our government, Mr. Speaker, has been clear. It is transparent. We have provided the information to the PBO, to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, and we respect his work a great deal.
Saint-Jean.
Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, so what he has just said is that the Parliamentary Budget Officer isn't telling the truth. That is amazing. The Parliamentary Budget Officer says he doesn't have all the information, and my colleague says that he provided it. So, in fact, what the PBO has said is that the information was vague and was evasive. So what is the truth? Mr. Speaker, my colleague across the floor knows that we have absolutely nothing to hide. The Prime Minister was very clear yesterday. He disclosed his personal finances and holdings clearly. As soon as he ran for the leadership of the party, he cut his ties with those companies, and now his assets are in a trust as appropriate.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the reviews are in for the Liberal budget with a resounding fail for transparency. The parliamentary budget officer called it the least transparent budget in 15 years, and a former deputy finance minister said it failed the Liberals' own campaign commitments. Even the CBC called it a shell game. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister thinks that the budget will balance itself, but how can the Liberals have any credibility on the economy when they keep fudging the numbers?
Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question. And in fact, the reviews are in from economic experts, people like David Dodge and Kevin Lynch, and Larry Summers, former Secretary of the Treasury in the U.S., who have actually called for this kind of important investment in jobs and growth for some time. Their calls were ignored by the previous government. We've listened. We've also heard from the Governor of the Bank of Canada, who said we've got a better mix of policies today than we would have had without that fiscal change. So the reviews are in, and we're doing the right thing, Mr. Speaker.
Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is making pipeline projects more difficult to get approved by adding more hurdles and red tape. He keeps moving the goalposts and giving special interest groups undue influence on the process. Now, he claims this more difficult process will ensure Canadians have more confidence in the process, that making it harder will somehow make it easier. Yet he refuses to commit to actually approving any project that makes it through his new onerous process. So very simply, if an application makes it through the new process that he himself has designed, will the Prime Minister approve it, or does he not have confidence in his own process?
Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, just 2 days ago, there was a question from a member of the Bloc Québécois, and he said that the government was about to impose the Energy East pipeline on the people of Quebec. Right. And just the day before that, there was a member from the Conservative Party who said the budget should announce its approval of a pipeline whose application has not yet been received by the regulator without a single community having yet been consulted. We're going to follow a more rational process, a more principled one that has a better chance of carrying the confidence of Canadians.
Member for Regina Capel.
That's completely false. All we're asking if they will respect the result of their own process. Now, Canadians know that pipelines are the safest, most effective way to get our oil and gas to market. Canadian oil and gas is the cleanest and most ethical energy in the world and creates high-paying jobs here at home. Without pipelines, Eastern Canada is forced to import foreign oil. Now, the Prime Minister's principal secretary and top advisor said, quote, oil and gas development is as bad as hooking kids on cigarettes. So can the government explain why oil shipped by ocean tanker from Saudi Arabia is somehow better than Western Canadian oil and gas?
Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, it's our objective, as the Prime Minister has said many times, to move our natural resources to market sustainably, whereas this government, in spite of $100 a barrel oil, in spite of all of that representation from Western Canada, did not build a single pipeline to Tidewater during its majority government from 2011. I don't think Canadians would advise the government to follow that process, so we're following a different one. We think we'll have a better chance to do the right thing, which is to move that.
The member for Timmins, James Bay.
Speaker, with the government responding to the crisis in Attawapiskat, we're hearing from Indigenous youth in other regions who are saying, where are the resources for our community? The crisis is extreme across this country, and Band-Aids will work. The youth want action now, and yet there was $0 in this budget to deal with the suicide crisis, $0 new dollars to deal with Indigenous mental health. This government has the power to act. The only thing missing is political will. Will they commit today to augment the funds to ensure that we can end the mental health crisis in all the communities across this country?
Here, here. Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, our government has been clear about the fact that we are going to increase access to mental health services across the country, and in particular, of course, we will be focusing on the Indigenous communities, the First Nations, Inuit, and the Métis Nation to make sure that they have access to the mental health services that they need. I am very pleased that in the case of Attawapiskat, there are on the ground now 18 mental health workers who were not previously there since the time of this crisis began. We will continue working to introduce the resources that are required.
For Timmins, James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, we didn't just get to this crisis by accident. The children have been dying on a daily basis across this country, dying in nurses' stations from strep throat and asthma because government will pay for the medication, dying by suicide because government will routinely turn down their pleas for mental health counseling. And this government has no new money for mental health or for health services. It has to stop. Where is the political will to invest the resources in what is truly our greatest resource, our children? Where is that will to move today?
Here. Minister of Health.
I hope that it is abundantly clear that our government is absolutely committed to addressing the gaps in terms of the realities of day-to-day life with Indigenous peoples in this country. In our recent budget, we have invested $8.4 million to address those gaps. Much of that will go to addressing educational resources which these communities need. I'm pleased that within that there are $270 million that will go to improving health centres and nursing stations in Indigenous communities. This will encourage health human resources to stay in these communities, and we are firm in our commitment to make sure that the health care services are there.
Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot. Mr. Speaker, the waves of suicides in Attawapiskat and many other Aboriginal communities have touched Canadians. We can't continue to abandon our young people in this way. The government says that it is taking this issue seriously, but the reality is that the budget had nothing for mental health services for young Indigenous people. The government has to invest in prevention. Will the government immediately provide funding on an ongoing basis for mental health services for young people in Indigenous communities?
Mr. Speaker, as the member opposite well knows, the response to the needs in Indigenous communities is a collaborative response. This is a response that needs to take into consideration, of course, the leadership of Indigenous leaders across this country. And in terms of Attawapiskat and other communities, we have done just that, and we are in regular communication with the national chief, with the regional chief, with the local, the grand chief and the local chief in this community. We are also working with the provincial government, who have recently invested $2 million to support healthcare services in Attawapiskat. We will be there working in partnership with all of these jurisdictions to make sure that people have the services they require.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot. Mr. Speaker, across the country, there is a crying need for more palliative care services. The government itself recognized the importance of this issue in the bill that it tabled today. But there's nothing at all in the budget on this. But the government promised $3 billion over 4 years for home care. Another broken promise. Will the government finally acknowledge the urgency that we need to invest in this area?
Mr. Speaker, I was pleased this morning to introduce, along with my colleague, the Minister of Justice, new legislation that will support Canadians to provide medical assistance in dying. At the same time, this has triggered a conversation, a very important one, about the need to make sure that Canadians have access to the palliative care services that they require in the end of life. I have said repeatedly that it's important that Canadians should be able to have a good and peaceful death, but just as much it's important that Canadians will have a good and peaceful and dignified life until the very end. For that purpose, we will make sure that Canadians have access to the palliative care services they need. We will do so in participation with our colleagues in the provinces and territories.
Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, 84% of Canadians know it's possible to transport our energy resources while protecting the environment. And 70% of Canadians believe pipelines are the most appropriate method of transporting oil and gas. Canada's oil and gas is the most socially and environmentally responsible in the world. When will the Liberals finally get on board and proudly support Canada's world-leading, internationally renowned energy sector?
Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we do support the wonderful energy sector in Canada, and I have had the pleasure of having conversations with people around the world about Canada's energy sector, and they feel very confident that we will get over this dip in prices and emerge stronger. In part, we will emerge stronger because they will know that our regulatory system carries the confidence of Canadians, and they will know that in 2016 we must move responsibly to market, and that's what we intend to do.
A member for Lakeland.
wonderful, but we're all wondering when, just like the workers. Mr. Speaker, Canada can be a major global competitor for long-term, high-reward LNG contracts with Asian markets. These projects will provide thousands of jobs and billions of dollars in investment and revenue to benefit communities all across Canada. And exporting LNG will help the world lower GHG emissions. The Liberals will be responsible if Canadian LNG is shut out. Will the Liberal government stop blocking Canadian companies from getting LNG to global markets?
Minister of Natural, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Major resource projects play a vital role in our economy, and we clearly recognize the importance of creating jobs and economic growth. We've been very clear that the focus is on moving the environment and the economy forward hand in hand, and in fact, that is a requirement in the modern age. With respect to LNG projects, they will go through an appropriate environmental assessment, and decisions will be made on science and data, not on politics, as perhaps they have in the past. This is the responsible approach. This is the modern approach. It is obviously not the conservative approach, but this is how we plan to move forward.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
In the last election, the Liberal leader said, quote, raising corporate taxes like the NDP wants to do strangles growth, end quote. The current immigration minister also said that the NDP's proposed corporate tax hikes would cost 150,000 jobs. It stands to reason, therefore, that raising the corporate tax rate on small business would have a similarly job-killing effect on our economy. I wonder if the finance minister can tell us whether his department did a calculation of the number of jobs that would be lost based on the tax increase the budget imposes on our small business job creators.
The Secretary for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for his question. No, it won't be like that today. And I just wanted to remind my honourable colleague that actually, Mr. Speaker, what we did is that the tax have been reduced for the small businesses, Mr. Speaker, and that we did reduce tax for 9 million Canadians. So I would invite my honourable colleague to read the entire budget, and you will see that this government is working for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, while the member is chopping, it was only our government that actually cut taxes for small business. As the law currently stands, the rate will fall down to 9% within 3 years. The government proposes legislation that would raise it up back to 10.5%. That's an increase in taxes on 622,000 small businesses that pay $150 billion in wages. Mr. Speaker, the budget contains a bunch of inflated numbers for job creation. I wonder if the Finance Department did any calculation on job losses with this tax hike.
Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague. I would remind him to read the entire budget, Mr. Speaker, because this is the government who reduced taxes on 9 million Canadians. And we did that already in December, Mr. Speaker. And the tax on small business have been reduced, Mr. Speaker. This is a government that works for Canadians, works for Canadian families, work for small business, and you know what? We'll just continue to do exactly that, Mr. Speaker.
For Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Mr. Speaker, prairie farmers and farm families are waiting for the Liberals to extend the great freight provisions, the grain freight provisions, including interswitching that have helped them get their grain to market. The minister could have made this decision last year, but will spend the rest of the year consulting unnecessarily. By the time he's done dithering, these provisions will have ended, leaving producers without reliable access to market. Why is the minister deliberately delaying this extension?
Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of course, we are looking at this matter very seriously, and it comes at a time when the Canada Transportation Act review has been submitted, something which I tabled in this House on the 25th of February, a very serious document with a large number of recommendations, some of which touch upon grain transportation. So I can assure my colleague that we are looking at this matter very seriously.
Hear, hear.
Barry McKenzie.
Well, if the Liberals were serious about doing anything on this, the Liberal MPs yesterday wouldn't have refused to agree to hear from prairie grain farmers who are concerned about these provisions not having yet been extended. As a matter of fact, I then took the opportunity this morning to meet with these farmers. These farmers said to me that they know that while the Liberals refuse to listen to them, that they know that this side of the House will stand up for them. So I ask, when will the minister extend these provisions that farm families desperately need?
Minister of Transport.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, but my honourable colleague is blowing smoke here. We have met with a number of groups ever since I put out that report. As I said, I put it out on the 25th of February because I wanted to hear back from Western grain farmers and from the shippers and from the railroads. I wanted to hear from everybody. And believe me, if you look at my schedule, you'll see that I'm meeting a whole bunch of them. So I encourage my honourable colleague to relax. I'm doing my work.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, with respect to the arms sale to Saudi Arabia, the government keeps digging itself in deeper. The minister claims that his hands were tied, that the contract was a done deal under the former government, but that is untrue. He was the one who authorized the export permits, which is the most important and key part of the contract. So why is the minister continuing to mislead Canadians? And will he finally face the music and confirm that the contract was a decision made by his government? Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I think that my colleague understands very well that she is the one that is confused. So here is a quote. The minister indicated at the end of March that he would assess with his officials that whether the vehicles being exported to Saudi Arabia met the criteria and were in the public interest. So if that journalist understood, why has my colleague not understood?
Really, Mr. Speaker, divisive personal attacks aren't going to distract from this government's misleading of Canadians. Trying to pit workers' jobs against human rights is a cynical distraction. But it doesn't hide government failure to open up new, responsible markets and support long-term sustainable manufacturing jobs in our region. Instead, they've gambled workers' jobs on a deal with an oppressive state, giving our city an unfair black eye. Where's the government's plan for long-term sustainable jobs for the workers at General Dynamics and throughout London?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, we're very committed to the manufacturing sector, and we understand the importance of this sector in London in particular. I was there just a few days ago making an announcement with respect to the Automotive Innovation Fund and extending this fund for the next 3 years. And this would allow further investments to allow job creation. And above and beyond that, just a few days ago, I was in Kitchener with my colleague to announce the Automotive Supplier Innovation Fund initiative, which will again invest in a supplier base. We're investing in manufacturing, we're investing in jobs, we're growing the economy, Mr. Speaker, and that's good for the country.
Member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's own guidelines outline that ministers and parliamentary secretaries must avoid a conflict of interest or the appearance of one at all times. The guidelines state that there should be no preferential access to government or the appearance of preferential access given to individuals or organizations because they've made financial contributions to politicians and political parties. Now, Mr. Speaker, can't the Minister of Justice see that by attending a pay-to-play private event with high-priced Bay Street lawyers who might be considered for a governor and council appointment that she is actually granting preferential access?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we've said on a number of times in this House, the Minister contacted the Ethics Commissioner proactively to ask whether or not it was appropriate for her to attend that fundraising activity, as every member in this House of Commons does from time to time, and as did ministers in the previous Conservative government from time to time. She received a confirmation that it was entirely appropriate for her to do so, and in fact, the Ethics Commissioner, in a 3-page letter, confirmed that to my honourable colleague's colleague, who asked the Ethics Commissioner that exact question. We consider this matter closed. He's obviously having struggle ending the matter.
Honourable member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister states that the definition of a stakeholder is an individual employed in or contacted by or who otherwise represents corporations or organizations that have current or anticipated official dealings with ministers. The Minister of Justice had a secret and private pay-to-play fundraiser in Toronto with high-priced lawyers who have a history of lobbying the Justice Department. Now, why did this minister contravene the Prime Minister's guidelines, which is a bar above what the House Leader is currently saying he's defending her with, and why did she put the integrity of her office in so much jeopardy?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, my honourable colleague knows full well the minister did no such thing. This supposed secret fundraiser that he keeps referring to, just because he repeats these exaggerated lines, Mr. Speaker, don't make them true. A fundraiser where every single donation is disclosed on the internet is hardly a secret fundraiser. It's something that members opposite have done many, many times over, and will continue to respect all of the provisions of the Prime Minister's open and accountable government code, as well as the Conflict of Interest Act and any other related provisions.
For St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's own ethics code states that ministers shall not raise funds from department stakeholders and lobbyists. Yet last week, the Minister of Justice attended a pay-to-play fundraiser at a law firm with extensive dealings with the minister's department and a lobbyist who was registered to lobby, guess who? The minister. So, will the minister stand up in this House and advise which other lobbyists were at the fundraiser?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Again, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member keeps repeating these silly phrases, pay to play. Mr. Speaker, he's confusing his Saturday night at the arcade with a very legitimate fundraising activity that all
I would order. Allard.
Order, please.
Allard.
Order, please.
Encourage ministers to use judicious language and not do things that bring disorder to the House. It's not helpful. The honourable member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Very smart. We have been asking these same questions for 4 days with no answers. The House Leader continues to stand on behalf of the Justice Minister. We are talking about her own Prime Minister's guidelines, clearly outlined instructions to ministers. She was not only told to avoid conflicts of interest, but to avoid the appearance of one as well. Was the Prime Minister consulted when his own Justice Minister decided to ignore these rules?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague, the Minister of Justice, has answered that question a number of times. My colleague across the aisle knows very well that members in this House from time to time attend fundraising events done entirely according to law. All of the donations are disclosed publicly as is required by law. The Minister of Justice did absolutely nothing different than ministers in the previous government used to do, and that every member of this, Mr. Speaker, every member on this side of the House respects the Elections Act, the Prime Minister's Code of Conduct, and will always continue to do so, something they had considerable trouble doing when they were in government.
Now, member for Edmonton, Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Transport claims rail safety is his top priority. Yet this week, rail inspectors told our committee, despite projected 10-fold increase in dangerous cargo, the rail safety budget is being slashed 21%. What? Yesterday, it's revealed that Transport Canada has withheld information on the 500 most dangerous level crossings. 2 of the most dangerous in my riding of Edmonton Strathcona. Cuts, inaction, secrecy won't improve rail safety. When will this minister take real action on rail safety?
Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, rail safety is my top priority. It is in my mandate letter, and I was very glad that the Finance Minister announced in this last budget $143 million additional dollars dedicated towards rail safety. That's a very serious commitment. With respect to grade crossings, I have made it very clear that this information, which is a tool that Transport Canada uses, can be made accessible to the municipalities if they wish it. In fact, I will be meeting with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities in 2 weeks to make that offer to them.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers and Canadians fully understand the importance of railway safety. The Minister says that he says it's important. Maybe he should tell the Finance Minister, because we've seen cuts of 21% in the railway safety budget. When you consider that there have been tragedies like Lac Mégantic and other accidents throughout Canada, that memory is very fresh in our memories. Now we find out that Transport Canada withheld information on the 500 most dangerous level crossings in the country. Enough with the words. Let's see some action. When will the Minister in this government undertake some action? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to make the point that railway safety is my top priority. I don't know what budget my colleague examined, but in this budget, the Government of Canada increased by $143 million the budget for railway safety for the next 3 years. With regard to the information on level crossings, I was very clear. We are certainly prepared to share this information with the municipalities if they so wish, and I will be meeting with the Canadian Federation of Municipalities to discuss just that. The Honourable Member for Gatineau. Mr. Speaker, the Syrian crisis has led to a great deal of sympathy among the Canadian public. The response by Canadians to this crisis was extremely generous. Our communities welcomed over 25,000 refugees and continue to do so, and people have made significant contributions to help those in their regions. Can the Minister of International Development inform this House about the support that this government continues to provide? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague from Gatineau for his question. Syrian refugees on the Hill today will be happy to learn that Canadians donated almost $32 million to the Emergency Fund for Syria. As promised, our government is doubling that contribution and increases it for a total of $100 million. Among the 29 projects that will benefit from these funds, the largest is UNICEF, which will help 430 educational centers in Jordan, will provide school supplies in Syria, and undertake vaccination programs. The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. The Minister for Veterans Affairs continues to talk about care, respect, and compassion when talking about our veterans. Well, one of them, Robin Bretnall, recently started a hunger strike to protest against the poor decisions he says he got from the department. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister confirm that he has contacted this veteran, that he visited him, and save them before it's too late?
Affairs. For the question. And Mr. Speaker, what I can say is that Veterans Affairs takes all applications to review veterans issues seriously. There's a process where it comes into the department. Then our veterans also have a chance to appeal at the Veterans Review and Appeal Board at 2 separate levels. We also provide those veterans who are looking to get their benefits legal assistance, allowing those claims to go forward. I thank the member for his question and will continue to monitor the situation going forward.
Member for Beauport-Limoilou. This veteran is expecting more than that. He wants the minister to call him or visit him, or at least call him. In the 2016 budget, it's promised that the maximum threshold for benefits will be increased and that this will be done retroactively. Can the minister share with us today his assessment of the monetary sums that will be paid for hearing loss that many veterans suffer from?
What I can tell the member is that Budget 2016 was a great day for our veterans. We delivered on many different aspects of our mandate items, increasing earning loss benefit, increasing access to the community impairment allowance, increasing the disability award. And we will continue to work with our veterans with care, compassion, and respect to get them the services they need when they need them and where they live. Part of that budget is opening up 9 new offices and hiring more staff to allow veterans' issues to be able to handle it in a timely, effective manner.
Member for Yorkton Melville. Mr. Speaker, Robin Britnell, a veteran and advocate from Newfoundland and Labrador, has been denied his claim to a disability award by Veterans Affairs and the Veterans Review and Appeal Board. He so strongly believes that he qualifies that he is protesting through a hunger strike until the minister assures him verbally that his file will be reviewed. April 11th in the Gander Beacon, Robin said, "All it takes is a phone call." After all their promises to veterans during the campaign, why are the Liberals abandoning him now?
Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Speaker, I can assure my honourable colleague that Veterans Affairs has an excellent process to review veterans' claims. Again, to reiterate, when a veteran has a claim, it goes through to my department. If that claim is then rejected, a member can go to the Veterans Review and Appeal Board and go there not once but not twice. We also have the opportunity to provide them with legal counsel to assist them at all processes along the way. I also point out that these are de novo application processes where they can bring new evidence at all points along the process.
For Yorkton Melville.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals promised investments in mental health and suicide prevention for our veterans. The Liberal budget completely failed to deliver. Building 2 new centres for research and treatment will not address these issues. Many veterans need to travel often and long distances to receive even basic face-to-face treatment. How is the minister going to ensure that mental health support and suicide prevention initiatives will be provided to all veterans, close to home, no matter where they live in Canada?
Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Well, I thank the member for her question, and I can tell you Budget 2016 goes a long way to addressing some of those issues brought up. We are opening up 9 new offices and, in fact, more outreach in Surrey, BC in the north for veterans to have points of contact. We are hiring staff to replace the 800 members that they cut from our frontline services. This will allow them to get the care, compassion, respect, and the issues dealt with on a timely fashion. I can also say to the member, my goodness, I've been the minister for 162 days. We've accomplished a lot. We're going to continue to work on the mental health file and get these centres of excellence up and running to get the veterans the care, compassion, respect.
The honourable member for Elmwood, Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, after years of pretending to be champions for Air Canada workers, the Liberals tabled legislation that gives Air Canada free rein to ship the good-paying jobs of 2,600 workers and their families right out of Canada. The Prime Minister once stood alongside protesting maintenance workers. He was chanting about solidarity and probably throwing in the odd kumbaya, Mr. Speaker, for good measure. But where is that solidarity when it could actually do something for workers? So will the Prime Minister stand up, apologize for his cynicism, and withdraw Bill C-10?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Between Air Canada and the province of Quebec and the province of Manitoba has allowed us to clarify the Air Canada Act on the Public Participation Act, and that is exactly what we are doing. This is an important adjustment that needs to be made, and I would say this. There are jobs that are being created. The amendment actually says that there must be jobs in the provinces of Quebec, Manitoba, and Ontario. I can't say any more than that at the moment because it's in front of the tribunals, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honourable member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. We don't call that clarifying. We call that sacrificing. The Liberals are giving Air Canada a blank check. Yesterday, they said that the Conservatives should have the law respected. The Prime Minister himself was parading around with his megaphone yelling, so solidarity. Well, today, they're doing far worse. They're making legal what used to be illegal. That's odious and disgusting. I've never seen people not stand up for what's right like this. The Liberals should be ashamed of betraying 2,600 families. Honourable Minister of Transport. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The end of the dispute between Air Canada and Quebec and Manitoba now allow it to clarify the legislation on public participation in Air Canada's capital. That's exactly what we're doing. I remind my colleague, who got all excited, that the amendment we're proposing forces Air Canada to maintain jobs in Quebec, Manitoba, and Ontario. I can't say more than that because it's still before the courts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Dans le délicat dossier de l'aide médicale à mourir, on constate que le gouvernement a donné raison au rapport dissident des conservateurs puisqu'on ne touche pas aux gens qui sont mineurs ou encore aux gens qui souffrent de maladies mentales. Tant mieux. On constate...
Alors, apparemment,
Apparently, interpretation's not working. Is it working now? Okay. I'd ask the honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent to restart. So, Mr. Speaker, let's be serious here. In the delicate file on medically assisted dying, the government followed the recommendations of the dissenting report by the Conservatives. It will not affect minors or people with mental illness, and that's good. We also see that the government will finally allow a free vote for its Liberal members, and that's good. But now we have to get to action. We feel it's important that all members who want to talk about this delicate issue can do so, but time is pressing on us. We are cooperating fully with the government. Is the Government House Leader prepared to take a second look at the hours of Parliament? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for his question. It's unfortunate that his parliamentary leader isn't here because he could have sent him...
Monsieur le Président, je m'excuse.
I apologize, Mr. Speaker. I'm not allowed to mention the member's presence or absence. It's too bad that my colleague opposite doesn't know that I made that exact offer yesterday at the House Leaders meeting because we fully share his conviction that we have to organize the House in order to give as large a number of members as possible a chance to speak on this issue. I'll be pleased to do just that. I appreciate the fact that the Minister has apologized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, every single large organization within the persons of disabilities community shares the same opinion on assisted dying. They want a prior review process of non-medical social vulnerabilities for every patient. This request comes from their shared experience. Poverty, isolation, and temporary depression often accompany a person's adaptation to a new disability. Mr. Speaker, what I would like to know is, will the Liberals respect those with disabilities by ensuring a robust prior review of social vulnerabilities is provided? And if so, what will that look like?
Now, the Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for the question and am pleased to have been able to introduce legislation and to encourage robust discussions. We've had substantive feedback, reports, including the special committee report that spoke to the fundamental need to ensure that we present the best approach that balances personal autonomy with the protection of vulnerable people. We've employed in the legislation the safeguards that were recommended by the Joint Committee, and we are going to ensure that we maintain and provide this discussion and make it available.
Member for Peace River Westlaw.
Mr. Speaker, Indigenous communities in my riding will be directly impacted by today's legislation on assisted suicide. I am concerned that the Liberals have ignored these communities. Dr. Alika Lafontaine, President of the Indigenous Physicians Association, highlighted the absence of major Indigenous organizations during the Joint Committee hearings and stated, "I believe that there have not been meaningful consultations with Indigenous peoples." Why didn't the Liberals undertake consultations with Indigenous communities on assisted suicide?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, as this House knows, there were a number of consultations that were undertaken which led to the legislation that was introduced today. This was, we were informed by the external panel which tabled a report to us not many months ago. We were informed by a very interesting report from the provinces and territories, and we were informed by an excellent report of the Special Joint Committee of this House. All of those bodies have in turn reached out to a number of other organizations, including Indigenous organizations across this country. We intend to continue consultation and a rigorous debate in this House. We are pleased with this legislation. We believe...
Honourable Member for Lac Saint-Louis. Mr. Speaker.
Faculty of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences is located in my riding. The faculty does world-class research on the relationship between environment, including water supply and climate change, and agriculture. Could the Minister of Agriculture tell this House what our government is doing to support and encourage research in this area, both at McGill's McDonald campus in St. Anne de Bellevue and across the country?
Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, I was proud to join my colleagues recently at McGill's McDonald campus to announce our government's investment of $27 million to the Agricultural Greenhouse Gases Program. This program funds vital research and practices and technologies that can be adopted on farms across the country. This is a great example of our government's commitment to research, innovation, and ensuring the Canadian agricultural sector is more innovative and sustainable than ever. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Prince Albert.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's business owners, farmers, and manufacturers deserve to be on a level playing field with our global competitors. But the Liberals' inactions and comments are confusing Canadians. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce has said that we should and must ratify the TPP because being left behind would be catastrophic for Canadians. How will the Liberals help out our exporters do business with Japan and Asian markets if they do not ratify the Trans-Pacific Partnership?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question as well as for his hard work and leadership on the Trade Committee. We have committed, Mr. Speaker, to studying the TPP before taking a decision. We are doing precisely that. The Trade Committee is doing that. So we are gathering the appropriate information before taking a decision on ratifying. In the meantime, I would assure the honourable member that we are looking at every avenue for increasing Canada's trade and attracting job-creating investment to Canada, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Quebec National Assembly unanimously adopted a second motion demanding that the federal government solve the problem of diafiltered milk once and for all. In fewer than 2 days, 4,500 people signed a petition asking for concrete action. Producers are losing $220 million a year because of the lack of action of this government. That's the economy of our regions that is suffering directly. Either the government will take action or compensate our producers. What is the government waiting for to solve this problem of diafiltered milk once and for all? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for her question. We are aware of the issues about supply management here. Like the Minister of Agriculture has said often in this House, this government supports supply management. We are working with the industry in order to find a solution in the long term.
The East.
Mr. Speaker, Toronto Community Housing provides affordable housing to 58,000 households, of which there are 68 buildings in my riding of Don Valley East, encompassing thousands of residents. With a repair backlog of $2.6 billion, thousands of homes are affected. Could the Minister please provide the House on how he is working with the city to alleviate this problem?
Honourable Minister of Développement Social.
Honourable Minister of Social Development.
I would first like to congratulate and thank my colleague for this very important question. Budget 2016 provides the largest federal investment in housing in over 25 years, Mr. Speaker. And this investment of $2.3 billion includes, among other things, $200 million for seniors housing, doubling of federal investment in affordable housing, as well as close to $600 million for retrofits and renovations, and I look very much forward to working with my colleague from Don Valley East, Toronto Community Housing, and the Ontarian government to make those funds quickly and easily available.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lobinière. Mr. Speaker, Canadian milk producers are desperate about the government's inaction on diafiltered milk. Every week, Canada's dairy producers lose millions of dollars in pure injustice through a scheme orchestrated by unscrupulous processors who are unethical toward their business partners. These producers have suffered long enough. The Minister of Agriculture must take action now for the collective interest of the entire dairy industry of Canada. Will he act or delay this indefinitely? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, As the minister has said often in this House, this is a problem we inherited from the former government. We are working on this program right now. We know what's at stake. We know the importance for this industry in Quebec as well as throughout the country. And we will find a solution for the long term. The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, we don't want to know whether the government's aware of the issues. We want to know if it's going to apply the regulations. The National Assembly, and I repeat this for the benefit of the Parliamentary Secretary, has asked the federal government that the Canada Food Inspection Agency apply its regulations about the composition of cheese using the same definition of diafiltered milk as the Canada Border Services Agency regarding protein concentrate. Will the government respect the unanimous will of the National Assembly and Quebec dairy producers, yes or no? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we're aware of the resolution in the National Assembly of Quebec. There are national issues at stake here. We are aware of these issues across the country, and we've made a commitment to finding a solution. That's exactly what we're going to do. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, the government has once again set aside the unanimous will of the people of Quebec. I'll give him another chance. This morning, the National Assembly adopted another unanimous motion. It asked the federal government to cooperate with Quebec to implement the motion I will be tabling tonight to put an end to shameful tax havens in Barbados. People in Quebec are fed up seeing Canadian law encourage these profiteers. Will the Prime Minister make a formal commitment to respecting the will of Quebec by supporting Bloc Québécois motion M42? Yes or no? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Revenue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to answer this question by my colleague. First of all, allow me to remind you that protection of personal information is a priority for us. When the Canada Revenue Agency has information exchanges with other countries, personal information is really protected. The colleague saw that in the budget we've invested an unprecedented sum, $440 million. So that's this government's will, to work hard to put an end to this scheme for the benefit of all Canadians. Thank you.
I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of Her Excellency Inara Marnitsi, Speaker of the Seima of the Republic of Latvia. I have a point of order from the honourable member for Durham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm rising on an important point of order, seeking unanimous consent of this House, and I'll tell the House why, to confirm our collective intention that no RCMP member be prevented from communicating with their Member of Parliament on Bill C7, and, Mr. Speaker, that no discipline be enforced upon a member who's responded to the call of the Public Safety Committee to appear before us as a witness. I'm sure it's all of our intention to make sure that members affected by laws in front of this place have the right to communicate in a responsible way with their elected representatives and to respond to give testimony before the committee considering that bill. Mr. Speaker, why this unanimous consent is required is a letter was shared today that would suggest that some members could not appear and that some members may be disciplined for having given testimony this morning at committee. So, Mr. Speaker, I would ask for unanimous consent so that as a collective